Debut of 18-fight veteran Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. I don't know why he's switching to featherweight. I don't know why he switched his nickname before the Renato Moicano fight, because that's got to be the worst nickname I've ever heard. You go from the Great to the Great Ape.
You do seem to say this about like every single event. You're like, this is the worst nickname I've ever heard.
There's some bad ones.
You're gonna need like a tier list of your most like hated nicknames.
If you want that, comment below. But when you look at this for Hernandez, 5-4 in the UFC at lightweight. Obviously, his best win was his UFC debut against the now 4th ranked lightweight. That was Beneil Dariush. Knocked him out very, very quickly. But for Hernandez, last time out against Call of Duty streamer Renato Moicano, he just wasn't really able to flow with the shots that were coming at him, and he ended up getting submitted. What did you make of that performance, and are you at all surprised that he's moving down to featherweight?
Not really, because it has been a conversation. Is it something I think is a great idea for his career? Probably not, but they're not asking me for my opinion on this. But I'm a little surprised to see it at this stage. I remember that was a conversation after he suffered his loss to Cowboy Cerrone. It was, hey, Cowboy's a lot bigger than I am. I might need to move down to 145. Just physically, I'm not sure if this is the division for me. But he went on to have some success at 155 pounds. But here, I'm just going to bring up his record very quick on Tapology. The hard thing to do with Alexander Hernandez is really predict where he belongs in the division. Because if you look at his losses, they're all quite forgivable. He lost to a Cowboy Cerrone who, although was old in his UFC career and in his MMA career in general, that being what, his 3rd fight in the UFC, that's a pretty big step up in competition. So you lose to Cowboy, no big deal. He should have lost to Francisco Trinaldo, and I'm not a big this guy should have won, this guy should have lost, but he got a hometown decision in San Antonio when he fought Francisco Trinaldo, and I will take that to my death. So we'll just leave that right there. Lost to Drew Dober, another good fighter in the division, beats Chris Grutzmacher.
Performance of the night over Chris Grutzmacher.
What? Okay, he got whether he gets a bonus or not, he gets a finish over Chris Grutzmacher, who's not a ranked fighter, and I think we can just leave it at that. Loses to Moises, who's a really good fighter, beats Mike Brendan, who isn't on this level. Mike Breeden, sorry. And then loses to Renato Moicano, another great fighter. So the weird thing about Hernandez is, if you take out the Beneil Dariush win, a lot of his wins are over guys who you kind of do expect him to win, and that's why it does feel like we're always trying to reset our expectations for Alexander Hernandez. So maybe that's his idea. He's only 30 years old, he's not the oldest guy in the world, so there is still a little bit of time to grow, but I think this is an interesting fight against Billy Q, because for Hernandez, we do question his chin at 155. He's been hit by some really big shots, and he's not a guy who recovers well after he does get hurt. Fighting a guy like Billy Q, whose X factor, if anything, is his cardio, is his volume. I do worry about how Hernandez is going to look if he does get hurt at some point in this fight, because Billy Quarantillo is not a guy who, we laud a guy like Jeff Neal, for instance. He gets somebody hurt, he stays composed, he stays composed. Billy Q says, fuck all that. He goes for you. It's that avalanche of shots. I don't know if Hernandez's wrestling is going to be good enough to get him out of some of those sticky positions on the feet.
Well, and for Hernandez, he does get hit quite a bit. He's only been knocked down truly once in the UFC against Cowboy Cerrone, but if you go back and you watch frame by frame, he does get hit by a lot of shots in his fights, and it kind of deters his overall game plan, and trying to get back into the fight can be a little difficult for him. But if you look at it for Quarantillo, his last fight out, like, he was in an absolute barn burner against Shane Burgos. He had good success in the first round. The end of the second round, he gets hammered on. And then in the third round, it's just a back and forth, and he ends up losing that one, and Burgos goes on, he fights Charles Jourdain, then he goes to the PFL and can't fight Marlon Moraes, and nobody needed to see that fight. But for Billy, it's been an interesting kind of draw so far in the UFC, and he's one of those guys that's maybe billed as a bit of a wrestler, or maybe billed as a bit of a boxer. He's an MMA fighter, but the only thing he doesn't do is throw leg kicks. And if you want hard proof, UFC and Dana White's Contender Series, 7 fights under the banner, he's 5-2, 8 leg kicks, 2 leg kicks, 1, 12, 6, 7, and 7. That's an average of 6.14 leg kicks per fight, and he doesn't do it at all. And neither does Alexander Hernandez. So both guys tend to primarily box, and both guys will wrestle. And I'm sure Hernandez moving down to 145, even though he trains at Factory X Muay Thai, a big part of this could be the wrestling, and he might go back and watch the success that Gavin Tucker had against Billy Q in the grappling and think, hey, that could be for me. Because if you match these two guys up by the output that they throw, they both had about the same amount of fights in the UFC. And for Hernandez, 3.97 to 3.94 significant strikes landed to taken per minute. And for Billy Q, you want a wild number, 7.74 to 5.80. Like, he throws a lot more, he accepts a lot more. And he had a fight of the night win 2 fights ago against Gabriel Benitez, and maybe he could have even gotten a bonus the last time he fought, which was just over a year ago against Shane Burgos.
Nobody likes to talk about stuff like this, but we just saw it last weekend. Like, Kyle Daukaus recently had some pretty serious surgery on his face, and then when he got hit by big shots from Erik Anders, he just didn't react the same way to them. And that's fair to say. We all saw it. Something that happened. Alexander Hernandez does not like getting hit clean, and that's what I do worry about in this matchup, because when he does start getting into some of those tough fights, the thing about Hernandez is he does have really good footwork on the outside. A lot of wrestlers really have some of that plodding footwork, especially wrestle boxers like an Alexander Hernandez, but he moves too much, and I think he's kind of gone too far with it, I think. Even go back to the Cowboy fight. I know Cowboy's a long-rangey guy, so it's tough to get into his range, but it's just Hernandez doing those half circles on the outside, eating a lot of big shots from range, so I agree with you. I think Hernandez is going to have success. He's going to have to put on the wrestling shoes, because Billy Q with his striking style on the outside I think is going to give Hernandez a lot of problems, because when Hernandez does start to get on the receiving end of some of the volume, he just doesn't make the best decisions. He'll kind of get that deer in headlights, and I think if that is a scenario that happens, Billy Q can go for the finish. He's like a shark. When he smells blood, he really goes for it. But like you said, after seeing the success that Gavin Tucker had against Billy Quarantillo, Alexander Hernandez could definitely replicate that type of a game plan.
Billy took us and put us on a poster after he beat Gabriel Benitez on his Instagram page, and everybody and their dog came out of the woodwork to rip on us. But Billy admitted it. In the fight against Gavin Tucker, it was a body kick that really threw everything off. He lost his win, then he started to get taken down. He couldn't get back into the fight. Barn burner against Shane Burgos. The thing that I like out of Hernandez is he's one of those guys that'll play peekaboo, put that lead hand out there to try and gauge, and then he plays around on the outside, whereas Quarantillo will just throw everything in the kitchen sink on the straight line, back out, straight back. So there could be a good opportunity for Hernandez to cut angles in this one. It's just, can he match the volume that's coming at him from a guy like Quarantillo? So
this could be a really good fight.
We look at the odds in this one. Quarantillo open to -210, -170. We have a look at Hernandez open +180, +140. Tapology votes, surprise to us there, to you. I know Quarantillo is a big favorite. I have no idea where the Tapology votes are going to be. I'm going to say over under 70% Quarantillo, but even I think they're going to be under that.
Oh, I think they're going to be over 80%.
See, I have no idea. Oh, close, look at that. They're close. So 791 total votes, 78% Quarantillo, 71% by decision for the 22% that have Hernandez, 52% by decision, 36% by knockout. In this one, I think Billy Quarantillo is going to be able to get the win. I think just having that experience at 145, making that cut consistently. I know he's an inch taller, and I know he has 2 inches less of reach, but it's just been a thing for him. He had great success over with King of the Cage before he came into the UFC, lower weight class, but for me, it's the boxing, the fact that he was able to cut through a 75.5-inch reach advantage that Burgos had. He was able to hang with the boxing of a guy like Burgos. He didn't really have good success when Burgos started to whip those leg kicks out there. They compromised his movement, but Hernandez doesn't throw a lot of leg kicks his own, so when it's primary boxer, grappler, I'll take Quarantillo in this one.
I like Quarantillo in this fight too. The thing about Hernandez, like I said, he doesn't react well to pressure, and Billy Quarantillo puts a lot of pressure on you. Now, if Hernandez can respond to that pressure with some of his own takedown attempts, I think he can have success. He is the heavier guy on top. The thing about Quarantillo is he's a really good grappler. He has great submission ability, but if you are the stronger, more dominant guy in that top position, he's not somebody like a Brian Ortega who's got that one-hit, one-kill jiu-jitsu off his back. He can be held down, so if Hernandez can bring down some of that wrestling success that he had at 155, like he had against OAM, that was a really nice performance from Hernandez. I think he could have success, but again, your chin doesn't get better when you cut more weight. And the thing about Hernandez is we've seen him get rocked a lot. He may have only been knocked down one time. Drew Dober put him on a knee about 6 times in that fight, though, and had him wobble for minutes on end. So I do worry about Hernandez eating the power shots of Billy Quarantillo. I think this is going to be a really fun fight, though. I cannot stress that enough.
Big time fight in the featherweight division. Both of us going with Billy Quarantillo, who turns 34 this week. So happy birthday to him. We have some big time fights left on this card. I'm really looking forward to Bryce Mitchell and Ilia Topuria. So make sure you check that one out. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.